Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody!
The energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, reppin' both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire, misunderstood. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline greens, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. Rob hype on the mic, CP's the fire spark. Together they ignite, voices like the park fans drift in jerseys. Legacy bold, the Metropolitan story forever told. Turnstile spinning, the crowd floods the gates. This is family, no time for debates. Crack of the Batman, the roar never fades. Queens in the blood, it's how champions are made. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline gleams, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. 7-line swagger, vibes electric and wild. Mets legacy golden since I was a child. Orange crushed skies, let the battle ignite. Ride for the home team till the last fight.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazing Mets pregame show right here on the channels and on X. How is everybody feeling today after that great win by our New York Mets in LA on that late game last night as they win 6-1 against the Dodgers? And it was just an all-around beatdown from Pete Alonso, the rest of the team, and what great pitching by Griffin Cannon. How you doing, Chris?
Was that a sigh of relief, Rob? Hopefully it was a sigh of relief because, listen, we have 9 innings of baseball to watch, dude. Come on, let's get it together.
Yeah, and I actually don't have to bitch, curse, and moan and be annoyed at work during a game. But it was a great game yesterday. I can actually, it's actually light out, so we can actually watch the game, which is always a great sign for all of us. But yeah, I mean, it was just, it was definitely a sigh of relief because we win the season series against the Dodgers, which is so important considering the fact that we all assumed that it's going to be very close in win totals with us, the Dodgers, and a couple of other teams. So winning the season series is huge, but let's get a little bit greedy today and take the series in LA 3 out of 4. That would be nice with Peterson on the mound.
Yeah, that'd be huge. That would be huge. We'll talk about the pitching matchup. We'll talk about also the lineup because a key name is not in this lineup, Rob. So we'll get into it. And, just yesterday, it was so good to see, as I see everybody in the chat pointing this out as well, is that, this team is having fun. You know what I mean? And winning cures all. This team is having fun. The camera cut to the end of the dugout when the Mets were batting. Acuna has the catcher's gear on, right? Pretending to catch, baseballs with the catcher's mitt. Soto's over there flipping water bottles. Francisco Alvarez, Starling Marte, Jose Siri. I mean, these guys are having fun. They're engaged into the game. And yeah, Pete Alonso just laughing at, I guess, the guy who was running on the field as well. So it was really good to see. Really good to see the camaraderie, guys, engaged into the game. And it's a different. It's not a different, right? This is like who the New York Mets were last year as well. Clearly, when Jose Iglesias came up to the club, you saw the team having fun, and everyone was wondering, are we going to get that same sort of energy in the dugout? And the Mets are winning, and it's hard not to feel good and confident when you're winning. 16 games over 500. Let's make it 17. First team, hopefully, by the end of today, first NL team to 40 wins. Let's do it.
Yeah, and you know what? They're playing loose. And that's something that we never really spoke about. Even last year, they still never felt loose, right? There was a lot of, even though the team ended up being good, there was a lot of gimmicks involved, right? A lot of people used the gimmicks as how what was forcing this team to win. This is just pure talent at this point, and they all feel this. They all believe in themselves now, and you could see it. Each an individual person, they're all believing in one another, and. I mean, did it look like a team yesterday that was facing against the Dodgers? They just looked like they were playing, a minor league club, and it was like spring training. That's the way they were acting in the dugout, and they were just loose. nothing phases them. Like that extra inning loss, how many times we talked about demoralizes a team. They just woke up the next morning like it never happened, and they did their job. And that is another thing that we're seeing with this team. Again, runners in scoring position, still obviously going to take a while to get where we need to be, but it was just perfect yesterday. Griffin Cannon looked like an ace of a staff. I mean, I'm still amazed by Griffin Cannon. We talked about rotations before the season started, and we're like, Griffin Cannon's going to be here because they're paying him $4.5 million. And did anybody expect this from Griffin Cannon? Because I sure as hell didn't.
No, I mean, I expected him to contribute in like long relief form, but I didn't expect him to be a mainstay in this rotation, especially after getting some guys back. But it looks like McGill is going to be the one that's pushed out of this rotation, or at least we would hope, because the way that Griffin Canning is performing right now is absolutely ridiculous. He is putting, just quality starts together. Really, this entire rotation is doing really well. I mean, outside of that one inning from Tyler McGill in which the offense came back to actually take the lead before they fell in extra innings, which sucks because I hate to dwell on that because we had a nice victory yesterday, but we could be talking about a potential sweep at this point, which absolutely sucks. But you know what? That's baseball. And like you said, to their credit, they bounced back in a major way. But yeah, this rotation is absolutely on one right now. And listen, Rob, I told you, like, this rotation is going to be fine. I know you still, and I know, Rob, you still have some concerns about the longevity, and that those concerns are always going to remain until we get into the playoffs, because we did see some of these rotation guys, Sean Manaea, Luis Severino, kind of fizzle out during the playoffs last year after a great regular season. But I really do think that this rotation, could they use another starter at the deadline? Sure, you could always say that. I don't think they're going to do it at this point, especially if this rotation keeps this same pace. But you can never have enough pitching at this point. But they're doing something that is just remarkable, especially with the complaints that we heard from this fan base all offseason long. David Stearns, what are you doing? He's doing his thing. And guess what? The Mets are doing their thing. And I told you, the offense, right? I apologize because I haven't been as consistent with these streams over the past few weeks. Life takes over, gets in the way. And I apologize about that. But what I will say is that I told everybody when the Mets offense looked lost and lifeless and they were just hanging on by a thread because the pitching was good, I said, wait until June. If this team is still doing this, if this offense is still doing the things that they were doing in June, then I would be worried. And as of recent, I don't want to jinx anything, but as of recent, they look competent. This offense looks like it's turning it around. The at-bats look more confident. Soto shuffling in the box. Pete Alonso is hitting moonshots after he goes onto a podcast with Mookie Betts. It's some good stuff. And it really does, like, this is the point where I'm like, okay, this team is finally starting to gel together. And we were saying that over the first few months, even though they were winning, it didn't feel like they were gelling together. But now the bullpen getting contributions from so many guys, right? Jose Castillo, huge outs yesterday, right? Ryan Stanek coming in, closing things out. Edwin Diaz has been fantastic. Braziban clearly gave up, the game-tying home run to Muncy, but he's been doing really, really well. Like, it's just next man up. How about Brandon Waddell? Waddell coming in. Like, listen, Rob, this team is getting, like, long story short, I know I'm kind of ranting here. This team is gelling, and they're getting contributions from a variety of different guys, and that's awesome to see.
Yeah, it's not a one-man show. It's definitely a big team effort. And, how can I ever hate on Griffin Cannon again when he strikes out Ohtani on an inside fastball and then blows a bubble coming off the mound? Like, it's like, I do this every day. Like, this is a guy that had one of the worst pitching stats in baseball last year, pitching all those innings and pitching 30 starts. Like, this is the same guy. Like, it's amazing. This guy act like he's been a Cy Young for the last 4 seasons, and it's like it's just waking up out of bed and started to throw and pitch great. It's amazing. And you see the lineup. Like they had 4 hits yesterday. It was Pete Alonso 5 RBIs, with Juan Soto had 1, and that was the offense. But they're getting the big hits, right? They're getting even early in the game, they're getting the bigger hits now. They're hitting the 3-run homer now, the 2-run homer now to take a lead early, and they've been doing this against the Dodgers. In the first 5 games, or what, 5 games of a series, or 6 games of a series, and now we're playing the seventh. All through the season when we played the Dodgers, so they've outplayed the Dodgers. This whole in the first 6 games of every series, or every game in this and the season series so far. So it is amazing to see that. And we knew this was going to happen. We knew the offense was going to do their job at some point. Now, again, we know they haven't been great yet, right? It was 4 hits yesterday. It wasn't something special where it was like a hit parade and the Dodgers didn't know what hit them. But it's the pitching that has been dominating this Dodger lineup, where they stop playing the Mets. They score 10 runs. They score 12 runs. They score 18 runs. It's a team that when they win, they score a ton of runs. When they lose, they score runs like yesterday. They'll score 2 or 3 runs or 1 run. They're not very good in low scoring games. They're a team that needs to beat up on teams offensively to give themselves a chance to win ball games. Or, obviously they came back the other night in extra innings, but they beat the Mets twice this year, and both of them were extra innings. So that just shows you that it takes them an extra effort just to beat the New York Mets. So I guess the Mets are actually good. So it's like,
I guess contrary to popular belief, we heard this team, and if you hear my dog barking in the background, I apologize. But yeah, I mean, at this point, I mean, Mets fans, it's like, what is the next concern for everybody? Because that's all I hear sometimes, and it's like, I'm living in the moment. It's June 5th. They're playing the Dodgers. We can worry about longevity. We can worry about all this stuff later. They're playing good baseball right now, and that's what matters.
yep, absolutely. And obviously, you're looking at the lineup. The big news is, and it's not major news, but it is an issue that we need to bring up with the Lindor injury. He broke his right pinky toe last night. I believe it was on that foul ball that Acuna actually caught with the catcher's mitt and the catcher's hat on, helmet on. So he's not in the lineup today, and that kind of sucks because you want to continue to get this team rolling. But it is what it is. Next man up, like Chris said, this is what we have to do. It's unfortunate. He is day to day. There's nothing like surgery or anything like that, or it's a right pinky toe. I broke both my pinky toes. Believe it or not. Again, I'm nowhere near a professional athlete, but you can play with it. It messes up your balance for a little bit, and I think that's the big reason why Mendoza gave him the next day off, because you kind of got to get like situated. You got to like understand how your body's gonna balance itself a little bit. You feel the difference. Like it's hard to like just walk for a little bit because you have to get your balance. So it's a great day to give Lindor off. Don't mess with it. You don't need him to favor something else and hurt something else as well. So once again, guys, Lindor, broken right pinky toe. He's day to day. Doesn't look like there's any surgery involved or long-term issue. I mean, it could be, but at the moment, there's not a long-term issue. It's just probably a very uncomfortable situation. And we don't know if they're swelling, which obviously if you wore cleats before, you got something swollen in your foot, you're having some problems. So it's good to give him the day off. Like you said, Chris, next man up. But when I took a nap and I woke up, I'm like, uh-oh. I'm like, why is Lindor not in the lineup? And not thinking that that's what it was. I'm thinking like, oh, what the hell happened? Because people were talking about, he looked like he was limping. When I was, woke up and went to work last night, and he looked like he was limping, and I'm like, what the hell happened? Hamstring, knee, ankle, and then we found out that it's a toe. So again, we want Lindor in the lineup, but this is a very interesting lineup, especially the top two.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Is someone saying that the Braves blew the game? Oh my goodness. They came back. The Diamondbacks were losing 9-3, and now they're winning 11-10. That's crazy. Sorry, I'm a little sidetracked. But yeah, interesting top two. Leadoff Brandon Nimmo is back. And it's funny how things work out for the Mets, right? Because when Vientos goes down, Mauricio comes up, right? that's the move. That's the corresponding move where we thought originally it would be Luis Angel Acuna going down. And now Lindor suffers this injury, which keeps him out. And so you have Luis Angel Acuna playing shortstop. Now, of course, you know, if it was the other way around and Acuna was sent back down, Mauricio could be that emergency shortstop. But I think defensively, this is your best bet in terms of having Acuna defensively play shortstop in his place. And he did so really well last season, both defensively and offensively. Really want to see Luis Angel Acuna start to change his approach back to what was working before, right? Trying to get on base in that 9 hole to flip the lineup over. And I think that, you know, at that point, that's the best way he can contribute alongside playing good defense for this team. So, you know, a couple of guys out or a guy out for the Mets. You know, Muncy, I don't think is in the lineup for the Dodgers as well, which is pretty big because he's swinging a really good bat this season as well. It's time to go get it done. And it starts with David Peterson. David Peterson's outing against the Dodgers last time around was spectacular. It was stellar. I mean, that was, I believe, the longest a Mets pitcher has gone in a game in 7 2/3 innings, correct? So far this season, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Yeah, so like it was a brilliant outing against a really good team. You know the Dodgers are going to be there come playoff time. You know, whether it's a NLCS rematch, part 2 this season or whatnot between these two teams, like these teams are going to be seeing each other down the road. At least we would hope. So go out there, execute the pitches. And the other thing that I really want to see here, I will say, is Francisco Alvarez. I
Mhm.
think that he is the one guy that can like, because I think that this lineup is teetering on the verge of going from slumping and is this lineup ever going to wake up to, okay, it's becoming more respectable. How they get into that elite category, I really do think that Alvarez could be the one to push them into that category if he starts to heat up and turn it around. I've seen some signs. You know, he had a multi-hit game early this series, which is really good to see with 2 opposite field hits. But I think that he has to get something together, and so that the Mets aren't thinking about reducing his playing time in favor of Luis Torrens, which I would be fine if they did that because Torrens is obviously the veteran, more defensively capable. But I think that Alvarez is the one guy that could push this lineup into the elite category for the first time this season.
Yeah, and we talked about it even before the season started. You know, we knew the injury was there, but Alvarez was going to be an X factor because of the fact that he was supposed to be at somewhere in the middle of this order, around fifth in this lineup, right? We were talking about him possibly being fifth or sixth in this lineup, or even cleanup at that point. We expected a lot of power from him. Again, I would take 230 average and 25 home runs. Like I want to see more of the power, and I know what they're trying to do with his swing. I know they're trying to kind of temper it a little bit and not overswing so much, because you saw what he did in extra innings the other night, where he drove the ball to right field. Didn't even look like he swung the bat hard. He has the power, and he just needs to, work to get that bat fast in the zone without over swinging. He needs to just get bat to ball. And I think with them telling him to do something and he's trying to work on something, I think it's a combination of thinking way too much. And, he has pure power. We talked about this with Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso doesn't need to, overswing. He hits a ball. It's going a long way. Same thing with Alvarez. He can flick a ball and the ball's over the fence. If he can get this going a little bit, just power-wise, who knows how far this lineup can go? Because this lineup has been scoring runs. Like, they haven't been, killing it, again, with runners in scoring position, but they have been scoring runs. They've been doing the job. They've been getting the big hit. It's just a matter of, who else is going to step up. Juan Soto's looking better. Pete Alonso is getting red hot again. Marte getting a lot more playing time, and he's been looking pretty decent as well. Nimmo has been looking better. We know about Taylor and his clutch hitting. Brett Beatty has cooled off a tad, but he's still been looking good. You just need another guy to step up here and, to start contributing a lot. And then we can talk about this lineup being, one of the best lineups in baseball, because that's what we talked about, bringing in Juan Soto and Pete Alonso back, right? With the lineup that we currently had, bringing in Juan Soto, we were expecting one of the best lineups in baseball. And it's still not there yet, but you see little glimpses of it. And that's what's exciting about this team.
Absolutely, 100%. And listen, I see this comment, and this just takes me back to what you said, I think the first time around when we play the Dodgers at home at Citi Field. I have to also remember that these aren't the healthy Dodgers, so I'm glad that they're able to beat up on them now. Like, I'm not giving the Dodgers that excuse, man. Like, listen, their pitching is not healthy. That's an obvious, right? But their offense, like, this is what their offense is. Like, this is their offense pretty much at this point. So it's hard for me to even rationalize that and not give. I'm not saying that's what Jake is doing in the comments here about not giving the Mets credit, but like the pitchers, at least for the Mets, have been taking care of business against the Dodgers lineup, which is pretty much healthy, I would say, right? Because Betts is back now. So like I, I don't know if I buy into that. Pitching aside, we haven't seen Yamamoto this series. He's not going on the mound. Who's on the mound for the Dodgers today? No, it's Knack.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lennon Knack. And so we haven't seen Yamamoto. Glasnow is obviously on the IL. I think that they're getting a couple of guys back. I think one of them is going to be Kirby Yates coming back from the IL this weekend from them. But that Dodgers bullpen also has been horrendous. Tanner Scott, who is got a 4-year deal. They were building this super bullpen. Tanner Scott has not looked good. They got to Tanner Scott in that first game as well. So I just look at this series and I'm like, I feel good with how the Mets have looked. Injuries aside from either squad, I feel good, and you got to give the Mets credit for playing the Dodgers well, regardless of what the injury statuses are. I'm not playing that game with the Dodgers, and
Yeah,
if the Mets don't get an excuse, nobody's getting an excuse for me. You know what I mean?
You face Griffin Cannon, you face McGill. I mean, Sean Manaea is the ace of the staff, and he hasn't pitched all year. Montas is supposed to be a mainstay in this rotation. So I don't want to hear about injuries. I really don't. Right? Yeah. The Dodgers were supposed to run away with everything, regardless of all the injuries, right? They did it last year. So you can't make excuses when you win the World Series and then make excuses during the season, right? It is what it is. The Mets found a way to be 16 games over 500 and on the verge of their 40th win of the season with no Manaea and no Montas, and basically one of the worst offensive runners of scoring position in baseball. And they've found a way to win ball games. And again, there's no excuse right now. There really isn't. Nobody makes excuses for the Mets. When the Mets lose, do you hear the Mets fans talking about because Sean Manaea is not there? It's a lame excuse. You know what, Dodgers? How about don't sign guys that are injured every year, right? That are consistently injured. You did that. You put yourself in a position to do that. Nobody to blame but yourselves. You traded for guys that were constantly injured. You sign guys that are constantly injured, especially in the rotation. What do you think you were going to get with those guys? Probably injuries. So that's on the Dodgers. That's on their front office. They've done an amazing job, and no fan base should be complaining what they do, because every fan base would want their team to spend, and they're doing that. So they spent enough money. This offense was supposed to always carry this team anyway. So if they don't score, they don't win. It's just that simple, right? If they don't beat up on a team during a game, they're not winning low-scoring games. That's why I hope, hopefully it's a low-scoring game. Yeah, we kind of sweat it out a little bit as Met fans, but I want a low-scoring game, because a low-scoring game benefits the Mets more than it does the Dodgers.
100%. I could not have said that better myself. And the Mets have been winning, and especially against the Dodgers, very lower scoring games. And I told you last time when the Dodgers were at Citi Field, you take a look at the scores of what happened and what transpired in NLCS, a bunch of games in that 6-game series that were really high scoring, and that benefits the Dodgers automatically, always. But yeah, listen, the Dodgers are going to be there at the end. They've got a good squad, on paper. And they're going to be there. They're going through, I guess, a little bit of struggles, even though they have a really good record at 37-25, 12 games over 500. But, something similar happened to them last year, I believe. And guess what happened, in the end? They still ended up, winning the World Series despite injuries. So, yeah, no excuses here. But yeah, David Peterson, I will say David Peterson has really impressed me over his past couple starts. He's been really consistent. I think a start or two giving up 1 earned run, another start giving up 2 earned runs. He's been around 1 to 2 earned runs in his past 5 starts, I want to say. And so hopefully that trend continues tonight, because if he gives up 1 or 2, we're not expecting this pitching staff to be perfect, but give the opportunity for the Mets offense to do their thing and just keep them in the ball game. That's all we ask from this staff, and they have delivered and then some this season. So, and how about Jeff McNeil? Also, we've been talking about
Yep.
Jeff McNeil, the second base, job. He's got a 6-game hitting streak right now. He's
Yeah.
getting on base, right? It's not flashy. I don't think that if I were to stop watching Mets games, I don't think that I would come back and be like, oh, this guy's on fire right now, because he's not really
Yeah.
swinging a bat that's on fire, but he's getting the job done. He's getting on base
Yeah.
consistently. And I'm pretty sure that's why he's hitting in the 5-hole today, right behind Pete Alonso. So really good to see that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got a ton of people in the stream and in the chat right now. So I just want to update everybody on why Lindor is not in the lineup. If you haven't heard, he has a broken right pinky toe. He did it in yesterday's game, and obviously he's not in the lineup today. He's only day to day. There's no major damage or he needs surgery, or who knows if it's going to be affecting him long term. That's yet to be determined. But it's at this moment nothing very serious. It's just, I'm assuming it's swelled up, and it's just give him the day off, and that's why Nimmo's leading off in this game. I mean, when was the last time we seen Nimmo lead off in a game? Like, it was so long ago, it felt like. But Lindor is out of the lineup today with a broken right pinky toe, and he's day to day, according to the Mets. And we all know Lindor, if he can play with an annoying back injury last year, late in the season, you can definitely play with this. Again, it's probably more of, just making sure how you can balance yourself while you're playing baseball, because it can be annoying with a messed up toe. It can screw up your balance a little bit, and you don't need him to favor something else and hurt something else. So give him the day. I'm still confident the Mets can win a ball game. You got one of your better pitchers on the mound. You got the pitching matchup today. So Lindor is out, but this lineup needs to do what they got to do, right? A couple of bloops and a blast. That's what we probably need today. And the Mets have dominated the Dodgers lineup this season so far at Citi Field and in LA. So it's a good sign, and I'm confident in today's game, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, hopefully they deliver. And one other thing that I wanted to say about Jeff McNeil as well is that he was playing center field yesterday. He looked really good out there in center field. I had questions when the Mets were gonna start experimenting with that when he was first coming back from the IL. I had really big concerns over that, and he's looked really good. There's no complaints there. But yeah, with Lindor's pinky toe, he gets to so many balls in the hole at shortstop. He's got so much range out there that's definitely going to inhibit some of that range. But listen, this isn't an injury that you go on the IL for. Mendoza already said straight up to the media that that's not on the table. So he's going to be playing through this. And just hopefully it heals as time goes by while simultaneously playing. But yeah, I don't really think that this is something that's going to really inhibit him too much. It's just kind of the finer tuned things of the game, especially with some of that great range that we've seen from Lindor at the shortstop position. So listen, I don't think any Mets fan at this point should be worried about it. It doesn't seem like he's worried about it. It doesn't seem like Mendoza's worried about it. They were more worried about Mark Vientos' hamstring and the severity of that, but it looks like he dodged a bullet there, and he's only going to be out a few weeks. I think it was like a grade 2, something like that. Not the worst strain in the world. So yeah, we'll see when he gets back. And at this point, I think that even Mauricio, I know hasn't gotten a hit yet. He's looked kind of off at the plate, but this is time for him to take advantage as well. And it's going to be really interesting to see what the Mets do in Vientos' time. It's time to come back and see where they're at there. But let's go in a ball game. This game's right ahead of us right here. Let's win a series. And it's all about stacking series wins, Rob. We've been saying this over the past 2 seasons, right? Keep stacking series wins. Because guess what? I think the next series is the Nationals, if I'm not mistaken, after the Dodgers, or is it the Red Sox?
No, Colorado.
Oh, it's Colorado. But we have the Nationals coming up soon. We have the Red Sox maybe coming up soon. Anyways, Nationals are playing really good baseball too. So the schedule is only going to get, it's not getting really any easier outside of playing Colorado again. But listen, I say all the time, doesn't matter what team the Mets are playing, doesn't matter what personnel is out there playing. And if you've heard this time and time again, I'm going to repeat myself because I'm a broken record sometimes. Any combination of the New York Mets this season should be able to beat any team because they are just that good and that deep of a team. And that's a credit to David Stearns. That's how he built this team. Is this team perfect by any stretch of the imagination? No, they're not.
Nobody is.
Yeah, and no team really is, right? No team really is. Are there going to be holes to fill come deadline time? Yeah, of course. But I feel really good with where the Mets are at right now. And not just because the record says they're 39-23, 16 games over 500. I like just watching them every day as of recent. I feel like it's all coming together. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah, 100%. And by the way, after the Rockies on the road, we got Washington and Tampa Bay on the road before we hit the road again with our two division rivals in Atlanta and Philadelphia. So we play Atlanta 7 times in the next 2.5 weeks. So again, division games very important regardless of what their records are. But yeah, look, winning season series, and again, it's very hard to win win series when a 4-game series. It is. I talked about it. Like, I would be happy with a split. Now I'm a little greedy. Now I want a 3 out of 4 in this series, but I would be happy with a split because of the fact we're facing the Rockies after that, and then we got Washington and Tampa Bay. Washington has been playing better, but they're a team that the Mets should beat, especially at home. And Tampa Bay hasn't really looked good this season either. So, taking a split of the Dodgers is not going to be the end all be all. Like I said, everybody wants to win today, but if we happen to lose, which I don't think we will, but if we happen to lose, it's not the end all be all. And you'll have, me Mr. Negative. I'm not going to, moan all over, moan and bitch and moan about it. That it's one game. Right, you're a broken record. I'm Mr. Negative, so it is what it is. But overall, if we lose today, I know we got Colorado, Washington, and Tampa over the next 8-9 games. I'm not that concerned because I feel like the Mets bounce back after losses. Like they'll go to sleep the next day. They don't care about the game before, win or lose. So and that's the one thing that we've seen from this team is that they don't harp on a loss. They go back, they play the next day, and they forget about it, and they play their game once again. That's what I love about this team.
One thing also, it just seems like this is such a refreshing stream. We're just talking about this team in such an uplifting manner.
Why
And you know what?
Chat? What's going on, guys?
Strange things happen when you win ball games, right?
Yeah,
you got Rob over here giving flowers to everybody on the team.
Saying.
And me just sitting back and watching this, and I'm like, this is it's like that meme. It's absolute cinema. Absolute cinema. Listen, Pete Alonso. What I want to say about Pete Alonso is that, first of all, this guy's going to get a fat contract, whether it's from the Mets or somebody else, because he is not waiting around. He's like, show me the money. He's going to be, show me the money. Mets are either going to pay it or they're not. Yeah. That's a conversation that they're going to have fairly soon, because this guy has 53 RBIs through the first 62 games. That's an unbelievable pace, 15 home runs. I mean, this guy is just phenomenal. But the biggest thing that I noticed with Pete Alonso is that we talked about extended slumps with Pete Alonso, especially last season, right? He started out of the gates this season extraordinarily hot. He was like the guy that was carrying this offense when everybody else seemed like they didn't know what was going on, right? From top to bottom, it was Pete Alonso. Then he hits this sort of slump, right? He was just in a funk. It was an absolutely terrible stretch, homerless for the however many games, most in his career consecutively. And now he's back to being Pete Alonso again. And so if you can continue, like, slumps are going to happen. Yep. You cannot stay hot and on that kind of pace for the whole entire season. But when you do hit a slump, how do you recover? Right? Because you talk about the team and suffering a terrible loss in that extra inning loss after Braziban, blows the game, whatever, the 9th inning. Maybe Edwin Diaz should have been out there. Maybe he shouldn't have been. Who cares? Because the Mets came back to win. But individually as well, how do you recover from a terrible stretch? Whether it's 2 games, whether it's 5, 10, who cares? This is really good to see from Pete Alonso. It shows us that not only is he he has made the adjustment mechanically, right, with his swing, but also mentally with his approach to not let 100%. This extend. And that's something that I know that you harped on all season long last season, that he seemed mentally out of it when he was just letting those, games, those terrible games stack up and the at-bats stack up. But it seems like he's making the adjustments and he's in a really good headspace, and that's really good news for the Mets. Yeah, and him with his pockets.
Absolutely. It was never the talent from Pete Alonso. We know he has talent. It was all between the ears. It's all mental with him. And you've seen it, that 2 week stretch was also, he couldn't throw the ball to any base. During that time when he wasn't hitting either, he takes one part of the game and brings it to the other part of the game. His offense struggling, he brought it onto the defensive side on the field, and he looked like a minor leaguer. Let's be quite honest. But it was hoping that it was only a 2.5 week slump and not a long-term month and a half slump, because that's when you get yourself into trouble. And this is a whole new Pete Alonso. This is 2019 Pete Alonso. This is 2022 Pete Alonso. This is how good he can be when his mind is right, because the talent is there. And that's what we've seen from Pete Alonso. And we talked about it when he was slumping. We're like, all right, when is he going to break out? If he's going to break out, it can't be a too much of a long slump. It could be a month slump, because then you kind of like, all right, well, you had 2 good months. Now you're going to suck for 2 months and then maybe show up in August or September. It was only 2.5 week slump, and you see that he's just mentally there. And he got off base a little bit, off track a little bit, but he found his way back on that track. And this is a great sign for the New York Mets, because the red hot Pete Alonso can carry a team. We've seen it early in the season. Hopefully somebody actually gets on board with him and starts killing it as well, and then we're almost unbeatable. So overall, it's exciting to see, because Pete Alonso has carried his team early in the season. He's starting to get hot again. Juan Soto's doing the shuffle, flipping water bottles, like you said, in the dugout, and just looking like a happy camper and a guy that is happy to be here, which I always thought he was. I just think he was struggling and he was pissed off at himself that he's a winner. When he's not doing well, he doesn't feel like he's adding to the wins, and he's just there for the ride. Juan Soto ain't that type of guy. So today with this lineup, Brandon Nimmo leading off, Starling Marte batting second, it's going to be the Soto and Alonso show, in my opinion. I think these two guys got to step up again and take over this game, because, without Lindor, you don't have that extra guy, Mr. Clutch. The way Lindor is, the captain, you need your big boys to step up today, especially with Lindor out. So overall, your final thoughts for today's game, Chris, and we'll be having a post-game show that will be posted a little bit later today. And hopefully we're talking about a Mets W.
By the way, last 2 weeks, Brandon Nimmo, after being essentially moved to the 2-hole, I know he's batting leadoff now, but that's because Lindor's out. He's hitting 320, over 300 over the past 2 weeks with a 865 OPS. He is also turning it around. So we're shouting everybody out today because they're playing absolutely phenomenally. And Brandon Nimmo,
it's the mental game with that. I swear it's a mental game with that.
And then, like, again, with the he just looks night and day different in that 2-hole. He looks a lot more comfortable in that 2-hole rather than the 5-hole. And honestly, what do you think? Because I haven't been watching this from like a pitch by pitch level, but what I will say though is that I feel like the pitchers are attacking him differently, potentially in that 2-hole. Naturally, with Juan Soto, right? Like
that, and I think just in general, the pitchers just see the 2-hole hitter as something, as a hitter that they could probably try to dominate. And I just think you get more fastballs. Or honestly, I still believe it's just Brandon Nimmo. The mental game with him, I think, is crucial again in this lineup. I think that when he's 4th or 5th in the lineup, he tries to do too much. Look in the 2-hole, right? Look at the average. You don't gain that average by just hitting all home runs, right? Over what, this 8 to 10 game stretch. It's because he's not trying to do too much. How many balls do you see that he hit the other way already since being in the 2-hole? Now, he does jump when his lefty on the mound to the 5 spot, but I think that mentality's becoming in that 2 spot, and what he's been in the 2 spot, I think he takes to that 5 spot when he occasionally goes to the 5th spot with the lefty. I think it's a whole mentality thing with him, just like with Pete Alonso when it comes to struggling, just getting out of that mental funk. And I think with Nimmo, I just think it's him not trying to do too much. I don't think it's that much more to think about except just the mental approach.
Really good to see, because he was another guy that was massively struggling between him and Vientos, who were kind of like, one of these guys, it'd be good if both of those guys take off, but one of those guys has to take off to kind of push this lineup into that next tier, which is really good to see. So hopefully 2-week sample size, hopefully he's able to continue it. So final thoughts, go in a ball game. don't settle for the series split, although you do have the season series at this point locked up. And even if they lose today, like you said, one game is one game at that point. That's kind of the mentality that I've been taking this season with, especially given the record, but especially today. I mean, they've looked really good against the Dodgers. No Lindor today, but it would be really good. Get greedy. Like you said, get greedy. Get greedy.
Agree.
And that's all I got. David Peterson, hopefully he's able to go out there and replicate that. It's really hard for pitchers to replicate not only a fantastic performance and follow that up, but also look as sharp as he did, or even a fraction of how sharp he looked in that first start against the Dodgers, because this lineup has already seen him, right? And I'm curious what his game plan is going to be, if it's going to be any different than what he did against the Dodgers last time around, because you have to approach this lineup in a very methodical way. I think everybody knows that, especially with their top 5 or 6. But go get the series win, go into Denver on a high note, and let's do it. Let's go Mets. That's all I got.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. And the Braves did lose, by the way, by blowing that big lead. So they did lose in extra.
Crazy.
I mean, I'm in regular. I'm sorry, in 9 innings. Sorry, but they did lose that again. When Mets win today, they're 10 games in front of the Braves. That's insane. Nobody would have thought that in the beginning of June. But oh well, too bad for them. Get greedy today, guys. That's the way it is. You got David Peterson on the mound. You got the pitching matchup. The pitching has been outstanding against this Dodger lineup all season with the first 6 games that they played against each other. Let's score some runs. I think you're going to see another big game from Juan Soto. You're going to see another big game from Pete Alonso and Juan Soto. I think they're going to be the driving force of this lineup today. Very interested to see Nimmo in the leadoff spot, because we don't know what Lindor, he's day to day. We're not sure if he's going to play. He might get a couple of days off, knowing that we're playing Colorado, and Nimmo might get a couple of games in the leadoff spot. So with that said, guys, we'll see you on the post-game show. Enjoy the game. Let's go Mets. And hopefully we're talking about a Mets W at the post-game show, guys. Have a good day. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.
Seven train rumble, headed to the field. Orange and blue vibes, the energy revealed.